everyone. Welcome to another episode of Vision 2060, a future focused podcast series supported by the US State Department's IVLP Impact Initiative and managed by the Meridian Center. And I'm your host, Samriddhi Shur. Today, we are going to talk about enhancing energy independence and innovation in energy logistics and strategic. Joining me today are two innovators, Mr. Dishant Mishra, founder and CEO of Board Resources, and Mr. Yashasvi Singh, founding member of GrowCalc. Hi, guys. It's such a pleasure to have you with us today. How's your life been?
Yeah, hi Samriddhi. Hello, how are
I'm
you?
good. How are you guys?
Feeling better?
Well,
Hi, good.
that's good to hear. So, we have known each other for a while. So, I know that you guys are working towards a clean energy transition and you have your own innovations, each of you. What I would like to know for the very beginning of this podcast is to, for you guys to introduce about your startup journey in brief, like what inspired you, what exactly is the gap that you are trying to fill as of now through your innovation, and how do you think this would sort of make India more self-reliant when it comes to energy independence, or is it something that is more interdisciplinary and would help more sectors than just one? Like, I want to hear your thoughts and more about your innovation. Let's go with you, Dishant.
Okay, so thanks Samriddhi for having me on your podcast. So I lead Bond Resources, which is a startup based out of IT Delhi. We are working on an important technology in energy storage space. And by energy storage, we mean by taking energy from renewable energy sources like solar and wind. And so right now we are in a big transition. The first leg of the change that we should have, reached is renewable generating assets. And that I think we've achieved with solar and wind. But the challenge still lies in storing that energy because that's not available 24/7, how our traditional grid works. So that is what we are working on with this technology that we are raising. It's called gravity storage technology, and it is primarily a very well known concept of using energy, generating energy by gravitational potential. But there we are using it for storing energy and not for just absolutely generating energy. So it's a concept of taking weight from a bottom place to a higher place that is also done by hydropower, but we are using talent coal ash. And it's a concept that is being tried by some other companies around the world. It's been around 5 years for us that we're working on this. And the initial trials have been very successful when looking to execute this technology on a commercial scale within the next 2 years. And the biggest merit that we offer is, of course, the low cost, which is a very strong proponent. We're a very strong candidate in that term. But apart from it, the scalability issue. Yeah, I'll be happy to talk about this as we go further. And I mean, it's a big opportunity that we see for ourselves, and there's a lot of things to be done by the young startups and innovators around the world. So that is what my opening thought would be for this.
Thank you so much, Dishant. I feel that energy storage in general has been a topic which is sort of overlooked when it comes to India, I would say specifically, because from from where I see it, like I've heard about energy storage a lot when I was in Germany and Austria. And in fact, there was this one interesting point about Austria as well, because it used to buy energy from Germany when it was cheap and it used to store it, and the storage system in Austria was so advanced that it used to sell it back again when there was an energy shortage in Germany. So for me, it was an interesting story because that's how they were doing business. It was one of the primary sources for the country as well at that time, Germany and Austria. But it's very interesting for me to understand, like, where does India stand as of now in terms of energy storage? I mean, I work in the domain which is sort of aligned with energy generation, so I'm familiar with that aspect. I think we are doing very well when it comes to energy generation. But what exactly are we doing when it comes to energy storage?
Okay, so to answer that, I mean, we are still days of starting with energy storage. The challenge with energy storage is primarily that it's more of a substitution of existing options in the grid, which is primarily coal and gas and like other existing candidates. But when we inject renewable energy into the grid, we presume that slowly and gradually it will catch up. It's like a three-legged street. Those kids in school, kindergarten, if they tied one leg and if you run, two people have to run together. And if one of them is not to do its job, it is not going to reach the destination. And unfortunately, somehow allowed a lot of renewable effects without any storage, because that's like it's more of an add-on. It is presumed as an add-on to begin with. The challenge is with cost, primarily the current options, which is like battery, which is very costly right now, which is, around 8 to 9 rupees in rupees per kilowatt. And that is not tenable with the existing economics of the business. It should be somewhere around 3 to 4 rupees per kilowatt. So it's a huge gap between the what the current technology offers. These are quite early days for us thinking about energy storage, and I think the initial part of the journey that we took this conversation is to back generating effects like solar and wind, and that has already started. But what is missing in the whole equation is the energy storage bit, and that is considered by the grid operators of the governments and the large companies in this space as an add-on or loading the existing grid with these effects. In the longer run, we can't do just with renewables like solar and wind. We need energy storage, and that is missing right now. And the challenge is that the existing technology options like battery are very costly. Currently, cost around 8 to 9 rupees per kilowatt hour, while the expectation is around 3 to 4 rupees. If you work out the economics, really understand what should be the minimum energy storage price, and that is the biggest challenge. The gap right now is more than 200%, and that is the opportunity that we see that we should, the technology companies that are working in this space should be able to offer technology at a lower price. And pumped hydro is an existing player, perhaps the one that you referred from Austria must be I'm not aware of it very specifically, but pumped hydro is used earlier, was used as a grid frequency regulation system, but now that can be used for large scale energy storage, and that is being now right now scaled around the world. And so that is already an existing low cost option, and we are focusing technology to it. So one of the very key insights that we've discovered is that cost is going to be a very important criteria for getting through all the technology options that we create for energy storage. So that's the sort of equation that we have to solve. Price is one of the biggest, I would say.
First of all, thank you for inviting me here and giving voice to the voiceless. As Dishant has already mentioned us as a young startups and innovators. And our startup is based out of IIT Delhi. And the idea came from producing on the production pathways of hydrogen. Because currently the world majorly the green hydrogen productions done by the steam methane reforming, and the green hydrogen production cost nearly 2 to 3 times more if they subsidize the green hydrogen as well. So we came up with the idea that we will produce hydrogen without emitting any carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So from that thought, we develop a reactor that converts methane gas into hydrogen and carbon nanotubes. So in that case, we can solve two major problems. First, the carbon dioxide that we are emitting in the atmosphere, it can completely mitigated, and hydrogen cost that we are getting, it's very cheap as compared to the steam methane reforming. It's around 120 rupees kg, and the when we run our unit economics, it goes around 200 rupees kg. And the carbon product that we are getting, that we can make carbon nanotubes, we can use them and make high end products to deliver for you can say where high machine ends are required on high, you can say smart material to improve any material which has limitations. In that, we can add dope cnt to improve its work life, or you can say the efficiencies in thermal or in electrical things as well. So with that idea, we came out with that we need to work on the green hydrogen space, and from that end, we came out with the reactor thing. And the second, mostly to answer the India reliance part of it, it's like the most of the patent on the fuel cells are held by the West and European market. So if you want to develop something out of that, because when you run a green hydrogen plant, your operations costs are as well, because your layers of, you can say, the membrane which will deteriorate with the time, so you have to go and buy with them because they hold the monopoly out of it. So we don't want to walk on that road. So that's why we created a new pathologies to produce hydrogen, and in that route we get the CNT out of it. So answer that question there, I'll say the biggest challenge is about the perspective. I'll say because as a plant perspective, carnivorous is a savior because he is eating herbivores, right? As a herbivorous, he's eating the plant. So from plant perspective, carnivorous is the savior. So when I say that we are developing a technology that produce hydrogen, first we need to understand where hydrogen is used for. Yeah, hydrogen is used in, you can say, petrochemical industries to redox reactions of the catalysts that are used in cement and the steel, and you can say to make ammonia out of it. So India directly doesn't import, you can say, hydrogen. They import ammonia to create urea and other things. And for the adoption part of it, the problem is that of the finance here as well. We have that problem, but from the perspective point of view, why I said that is because of the people don't see our technology as a green hydrogen. They see as a turquoise hydrogen. So when we go and pitch to the people, they always say, why you are not aiming at the green hydrogen? People don't see the changes drastic. People see the changes drastic. Why as a team we say change is gradual? First you need to fight the barrier of the cost. You need to understand the unit economics of the product. The hydrogen that you are getting out of the green hydrogen plants, it's very expensive. You first need to narrow it down. You need to bring it down to the person people can pay, because people have to pay it from at the end. But the government can put some initiative. Government is totally aligned with it. Government has already said that in 2047 they want 128 gigawatts of nuclear power plants. Yeah, people from now on they're working on nuclear fusion. People say there is a problem, there is a financial problem, there is everything problem. But the way I see it, the perspective problem. The people who are investing in India, they have to change the perspective that India is not now importing technologies. They can develop technologies on their own. They have that potential, because we are the engineers. When we sit in India and we sit in abroad, if we develop a technology, there is a parity in that. People don't trust that we can build the same technology in India, because people have a very good narrative about the frugal innovations that we Indians have.
Yeah. More than being a scientist, I have to become psychologist and sociologist and politician and like economist and other roles. And there's always, and I say this often that, you know what, everybody's problem is nobody's problem. If I develop a scar on my skin, I go to doctor and get it treated for my own, and it will be sorted in a week or something, some time like that. But if we end up developing a big hit on the road, it takes time for agencies to spot that and fix that unless it becomes so hazard. That is how the challenge is when it comes to climate. We are all subset of solutions to the climate problem, and we need to address this. And the challenge with this climate has been from the initial days. I mean, it's been 50 years, and we've just been able to gather people to understand the problem, and very limited amount of changes have gone through. And the challenge is that climate problem has to be addressed in terms of making it economic sense. And that takes time. The technologies that we're currently using have been developed over centuries. For example, the thermal energy generation or the fuel that we use has taken a lot of time to reach us, and they have the comfort of time with them. But for technologies that are now emerging to replace the existing ones, are expected to be developed within a time span of few decades. And there's not enough that is available to the innovators and to the startups around the world. And somewhere I strongly feel finance is one challenge, I would say. But you know what? If government decide and government around the world decide to make a clear mandate to execute some goals, real climate goals, and adhere to it, I do not have any doubts that enough finance will be available to the people those who are doing it. If government decide that tomorrow we're gonna sort of cut away this existing generation by some target, and then you'll see, and there is no option, though there is no other option, you'll see all the technology options will eventually start to emerge. So this is the, I would say, the bigger the challenge that we face. Specifically, I can talk about finance. There's not enough to be able to propel through the initial days of starting our technology venture. And then, of course, the mindset. We are all humans at the end of the day, and people at places where they should be looking to see a long-term solutions to the problem, be it the government functionaries, be it the VC circle, the people those who are looking to invest, And we, the other facilitator, they are more stuck to look out the low-hanging fruits, be it so many things that has happened in the climate space. I would say we don't have many things to think about commercializing in the shorter run. Then eventually those opportunities that are going to be solving the bigger problem will somehow be defeated, or I would say will be challenged by the short-term opportunities. Maybe we solve the mobility problem. We started to solve the mobility problem, but the challenge with it is everyone knows that unless you decarbonize the grid, the mobility options which are like plugging into the electricity grid will only going to generate more carbon dioxide. So that's the sort of we need to get the act together. And I mean, over the last few decades, I've seen the politics around it has somehow not being able to catch up. But coming back to how what we can do to what how we are propelling through this time is to actually focus on the minimum doable opportunity. So we've been focused on technology at the first thing we think about our plan, and then parallelly allow our business options to emerge slowly and gradually. And that has taken more time for us. Apart from the second challenge that I strongly feel in the current time is that there's no specific advantage of right now offering anything which is climate affirmative. So what happens is if you're competing in the market in terms of again energy generation, which is primarily fossil based, you have to at the end of it compete against the price. And we have seen the alternative market like carbon trading, or in India, there's a domestic program called Perform, Achieve, and Trade, the other form of certification. And those markets haven't even reached the point of sort of significant impact on the national market whenever they have now been purchased. So both of these parallel opportunities, whether the conventional economy or the incentive economy, haven't kicked off in favor of. It will take, I think, around a decade for these technologies to emerge and start making some dent into the existing dispensation. And eventually, we see some tailwind emerging from there from that point on. Those emergents have taken over and allowed VCs to come in and continue to invest in short-term cycles rather than opportunities that are really changing the the whole setup.
So basically, I'd say energy security point of view, energy decentralization point of view, it depends on the geographical conditions as well. If you go to Leh Ladakh region, there is more solar irradiance. So you should focus solar there. In Gujarat, you should focus solar there. When you go to Meghalaya, or you can utilize hydrogen energies. When you go to the offshore thing, you can utilize wind, because you can wind energy as well as tidal and wave energy as well. But there is a project running by the government itself in the geothermal plants in Leh Ladakh region as well. So energy can be decentralized, because having renewable resources, depends on the geographical conditions. It doesn't depend if the hydrogen will come out, or solar will take the lead. It's not about taking the lead. It's about solving the problems and delivering it to the people. It has to be decentralized, because when you transmit electricity from coal power plant to your household, there is a transmission losses that happen. To solve that issue, you need to decentralize the grid. And you are talking about the grid in India, there is a lot of theft happening in the grid. People used to steal electricity by putting one wire and everything. So decentralization is a very good option, and we should not make a winner in renewable, that the solar is the winner, or you can say the wind is the winner and the hydrogen is the winner. Every source of energies has their different advantages and the different geographical settings. So when different settings will come together, we can solve the problem of India in general. So to putting all so I'll call out all the policies as well. If you are talking about the policies, and they should not focusing on one thing, as Dishant is solving a very good issue. I'll say gravitational storage. No one thinks about the storage. He rightly mentioned about a three-legged race, because you generate electricity in the you generate electricity by solar. It may peak in the afternoon, but what about the evening time? So you need to store that energy. You can't rely on the, you can say, batteries and everything. You have to see the LCA analysis of the life cycle analysis as well, because the carbon emitting, you import batteries and everywhere, and then try to solve after 5 years the problem of battery hazards, where you utilize that battery. how you can utilize, then the another startup will grow up where you can utilize that battery waste. Now if you put too much emphasis on the solar, then the problem will rely that solar, how you can use the solar waste as well. And if you rely too much on the wind, because I'm reading an article on the wind as well, that wind, when you generate electricity from the wind, the ppm level of the, you can say, there is a friction between the wind and the turbine. So the waste of that wind turbine cause the ppm as well. So people are putting everything, because there is something against as a renewable energy as well, because you can't say the renewable energies are not emitting carbon dioxide. There are scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions as well attached to the renewable energies as well. So we need to decentralize. We have to put, we don't have to put a single one winner. We have to decentralize grid every point of time depending on the geographical conditions.
Yeah, so Sanjit, if you see the current day, taking it up from where I left, if you see the current day grid is made by thermal operators like coal, gas, and you have hydro, nuclear, bioenergy, and then renewable energy. And there's always some small players here and there. Then, so it's a mix of a good number of, it's a diversity that is at play. Now, in the future, I don't have anything against batteries or electrochemistry, okay, but what I clearly see, batteries may not be able to solve the problem alone, and we bidding in favor or against of it is not going to be the way forward. What we need to realize is that there are multiple options that will be needed. There will be a base load operator, maybe the low cost options like pumped hydro. And we come in as an cousin technology to the pumped hydro system. There are other mechanical operators that we're going to fit in the intermediate space. And then we've got batteries will always be there. Large plants of any sort, be it pumped hydro or be it will be having a very tiny layer of electrochemistry to support the minor tweaking during the operation. So they'll have their space. I believe that 10-15% of the future storage market will be batteries, and large chunk, maybe around 50-60% of it will be lowest cost operator, that is pumped hydro systems. And likewise, there'll be space for us. Will be the way forward in the data that we see from here. But again, what I would go back to help you understand this and the battery equation. Batteries are not a new technology per se. When you see we are using batteries in so many applications, be it automobile or the laptops or the electronics that we use. So they're here for a good time, and they've not, if you presume, maybe around 50 years of legacy that they already have. And they're not being able to cut down the cost. Also, the challenge would be ecology, how you source it. Even with sodium ion, you need production factors of 100, 200x of the current day global capacities. And that would require a lot of value chains to be discovered and to be aligned, and refining process and everything. If you extrapolate it to the challenge that we have to solve for the whole world, even with 10-15% of the global energy need to be served by batteries in the grid, they will find it will be very difficult for them to pull this alone. And so you need multiple, and unfortunately, we've seen government and various corporates have focused on trying to use the existing production systems with batteries have already, I would say, mastered with the small production capacities for these electronics and for the automobile sector. What they use for the conventional automobiles, there is a battery that is needed. So they are somehow has the advantage of, and somewhere in the global oil economy want to stay. I don't want to dismay yes about it, but chemistry has its own advantage, and that is all the oil and gas majors have a sort of a liking for anything which is evolved out of chemistry. But at the same time, we need to parallelly invest ourselves into the other opportunities that are there. And I always say this: favorite child never wins. And somehow to say this, what for us that means is there's always opportunity. And whenever I see a new technology come up, I do a simple thing, and that goes to open an Excel sheet and put down the number and come up with the levelized cost. And if they're able to make any sense of it today, or even projecting it in the forward direction in the time ahead, and if they make any sense in terms of maybe improving the cost by improved value chain, or solving that, solving problem to sourcing some material. If they're able to do that, it should be visible on an Excel sheet, and it's not difficult for any good analyst or researcher to put together everything and make sense of the numbers that should speak on themselves. So for me, I would continue to advocate diversity for the energy storage or energy market as a whole, And that would require other set of technologies that currently minority like us. I have a simple litmus test for anyone who is working in a climate space. And if you want me to just help you picking up professionals who are working in this, so somebody is working on a Word, a PowerPoint presentation is considered something is doing something over there. But if somebody is working on Word file, that means they're maybe analyzing something. But the best, I would say, the person who's making the biggest value, generating biggest value in the current climate space is a guy who is working in an Excel sheet. Because ultimately, the numbers should speak on for themselves, and any corporation, any capital, I mean, investor, it actually needs to have the confidence that it will gonna be making sense of it in the future. Although, I mean, not everyone believes what is going to happen with the assumptions that they take, but it should make sense in terms of economics. And for me, I've been doing this for 4 years now, analyzing all the tech goes into an Excel sheet and help ourselves whether it's gonna make sense for us to think about this. It's been 4 years, I think five maybe when we started to do this. We've taken the numbers from some of the initial plants in energy storage, be it like the Tesla, they've deployed two projects in Australia. We started with those numbers and put them into Excel sheet and come up with the levelized in Australian currency terms. And then we did it for some other plants from Europe, and then kept doing it for around 18, 20 plants we did before we actually start to do our template, and that is we started to use it as a standard, and we continued. And there's not enough publication in this space when finance meets energy, especially the new energy space. And so I know a few analysts around the world, they know their job and like they can do this and they do this to come up with. But yeah, people in this space, for me, I've learned this over my experience of around 1.5 decades that it should make sense in terms of economics to make anything fly in this space. And that remains true for these many years that I've worked in this space. So I always start with that whenever we have something to think about a parallel technology or internally for our own self, we actually do that and come up with making sense of any amendment that we do in our tech as well.
Yeah, so establishing supply chain is you about procurement. So we have materials where when we are developing a reactor, we don't need so much of when in a prototyping stage. So basically on the technological end, we have that much caliber that we can solve the issues at our own end. And if you say it should be interdependent with the nations as well when we are dealing with carbon nanotubes. So we can make products and we can solve bigger problems when we trying to put our CNT into various metals to improve their thermal efficiencies and trying to develop a thermal coating which can increase the battery life, or we can say heat dissipations method, or you can say a thin coating on jets to stop their icing problem. So when you develop a technology, you need to trial runs that technology, that you have that claim. To prove that, we need some persons, or you can say commodity or companies, to prove that what we have developed and what we have done and checked on in our labs, and we need to get the answers in the real world. You can simulate the answers, you can simulate the atmospheres at your labs and everything, but you need the answers from good people. So you need interdisciplinary intercontinental knowledge to be shared and your product to be tested. But when you are trying to get to TRL level of 5 or TRL level of 6, you don't need, basically I'll say, when we are in campus like IIT Delhi, we don't need basically from people outside to tell you need to do this. We can do the prelims things, right? First 2 to 3 steps we can take forward, then we can discuss when you are stuck. So at the start, you don't need to discuss with the higher people how you solve this issue. First, you need to get their basis and the first things checked and done. Then you can ask for other people's that this is the problem that I am facing. Then you can reach out to the professors who are working in this field, that these are the problems I'm facing right now. How you solve that? And all of the data, if you want to read about any professor you want to wish to talk to, you can read his research and you can get an idea what he's doing, and you can replicate that work and you can get an idea what he's trying to do, and you can prove your methods. So first of all, I can say for developing a technology, first you have to clear your own basics. Then you should approach other countries and other professors who are renowned for the guidance. And when you have developed a product, then you can claim it to the other company that I have this product to solve this issue, and please try it and let us know.
So apart from few permanent magnets and semiconductor that we need, whether these are fringe components that are going into the tech, most of the components that we will source will be domestic made by developed and sourced in the domestic company. But to be more specific, coming in terms of what we are solving, we need a significant portion of our BOM is actually the sand and coal ash, which is going to be sourced from the thermal generating plants across the country, and they're spread around in every geography. So wherever they need for energy storage, and we can come in and we'll be looking to source this from nearby. So that bit is solved, but I mean, for us to think in terms of scaling it up, we need to innovate in terms of engineering. And yeah, I just second your thought about the engineering talent and the scientific talent that we have in the country. And I think over the last four generations of engineers and scientists that we've produced, the initial ones were primarily looking to approve themselves for the first two, three generations. But the good thing is that the last, I would say, those who perhaps have been working around the world in they've graduated from India and they've moved out. So they've proven in terms of their ability to perform at the lead these technology development programs around maybe each company. And somehow that we've now reached the time that we can deliver quality engineering with low cost base that we can deliver the production, we can produce the outcome of the technology programs can be delivered in the lowest cost possible. And that will help the global south, not only the global south, energy is a space which is very cost sensitive. So we have to make sense of anything coming out in the energy space. We must take care of the cost. So that is a good blend between the confidence of the Indian talent and the low cost opportunity, I mean, the low cost base that we can produce these things from. So that's my answer to how we can look to continue to invest in this and create good outcomes from the ecosystem. Can I go ahead first? Yeah. So to answer that, where the Indian ecosystem is and how we see to solve it is actually an interesting thing for me to deliberate on. The first thing is, see, in 2011, India generated 65% of energy from coal, and the last financial year that we closed is actually around 74%. So instead of reducing the coal consumption, coal dependence, we've actually increased it. And also, to add to that, Government of India decided in 2020 to discontinue any new coal installation. By 2024, they revoked that decision and then decided to add around 75 gigawatts of coal capacity. That is only the sign of what is not getting done. That is not getting solved. And we've been very optimistic over the 2010 decade, and the 2020 has been just a follow up of what has not been done. And there is a huge opportunity for not just I strongly feel that there are not enough companies in energy storage space. If you really make a serious attempt to count the number of good startups that are actually raising technology in energy storage and extended hydrogen economy or the entire ecosystem where we need to do the transition, there will not be more than I think 1,500 startups globally that are actually working in this space. And I strongly feel that we need at least 10,000 to do the technology work and scale up. Probably in the scale of time, we will see more emerging to distribute these technologies. But the reason why we are very less, it's a difficult path. The initial days are very difficult. And unless we solve when we see the opportunity, and I'm very optimistic about if we have people who are continuously knocking on the door, be it government or corporates or investors in this space, we just have to continue walking forward every day. And the biggest miracle in the world is that every day we wake up and go to work. And you know what? We've created the entire world by just going to work every day. And that is how we've created this. It's no rocket science for someone who's working in this space is to continue and back yourself with a affirmative approach toward solving a large problem. And that is something that is going to, and if you have the good thing with, I would say, and people in science and engineering and research is actually, you can put down the facts and in place. And if you have enough confidence to, when you start the journey, you might not have a huge to start with, but eventually test out your thesis over a period of time and continue to back yourself. And one day, those assumptions that you've taken, those I would say plans that you've made, if they go through the test of time, we'll see them emerging. It might go very slow, but continue the good work, I would say, to sort of see your technology grow. And lastly, yeah, I would say AI can wait for some time, if even we be late by maybe a decade. But you know what? If you're not able to solve the climate problem by another 2 to 3 decades, the kind of opportunity that we have to go around the world, really, the temperatures will not be the same as it had been till this time. And so it's an alarming situation. We will not be able to undo the damage that is going to start from now onwards in the next few years. And we still would be not able to undo all the damage that has been done till now. It is very noble cause for people to work in this space. Those who are, I would say, conscious souls could be able to understand, and especially working in science and the domain of energy is something that I have acknowledged for myself that this is the place for me to work. Unless I work in this space, I would say I will not find a peace for myself for my life to think where I've invested my time in. And I could have been a financial analyst or maybe a surgeon. But if I have got on to understand this problem, I am attempting to solve this. And the nieces are very young and they may be they are right now 2 and 3 year of age. And if they turn 20, 22, and they might turn back and they see some problem in the world that we could have solved and they would have seen to me, what would they see that I had the opportunity to solve? And I have attempted to solve that. So I'm trying to make a better place, this world a better place.
So, as I previously mentioned in the about the geographical conditions that renewable energies, different renewable energies serve different purpose. So, same I wanted to say in hydrogen as well. You can generate hydrogen from from electrolyzers or the fuel cells or whatever source you want, but there should be another backed up resources to generate hydrogens. So, from that vision, we started building that company, and we get the carbon nanotubes, and we are trying to solve as many problems that we wanted to solve with the CNT in the material space as well. And addressing the question that you have for the policies maker, I would like to say, because the startups and the tech is solutions for many geopolitical reasons, and it may strengthen the Indian government, because if you rely on tech developed in house, so you can have an upper hand when you go on the negotiations. So for the policymakers, they should see the tech which can be used, and they should admire the tech what people are working on, so they can be very vocal about it, and they can put some policies for the betterment of these startup. As I give an example, what happened with the gambling market, government of India pulled back one policy and all startups in that space are gone. So policies play a vital role in the startup world, because if there is no policy in the green hydrogen, there will be no startups in the green hydrogen. Same goes for the nuclear space, what the solar schemes that we have in India. So policies plays a vital role for nurturing a startup. So policymakers should have a very deep knowledge on the startups ecosystem, what kind of startups are coming out in their countries, and what the people have vision about their own countries. So, what about the young generation? Energy sector has many open brackets and many problems to be solved. We already discussed in this podcast that there are many problems that you can solve. So, we invite young innovators to the energy space to solve the problems. And if you come, you will realize the problem is more humongous. Now stabilizers will be procured from India itself. They don't have to take it from China. So you are making make in India. So you are playing a role, but not that vital role, because we need to identify that everyone cannot be a $1 billion company. Some has to be $1 million company and solve the smaller issues. But smaller issues are meant to be rectified. If you are not able to solve the smaller issue, then there will be no one to solve the bigger issues. So step by step. So that's why India youth should incline towards it. As I say that AI is coming into the picture and people are scared with the AIs and everything, what will happen? So try some innovative path and try to solve the problems where AI won't come to hunt your job. And for the listeners, I'll say whenever you see and start respecting the energy professionals as well, because it's a growing demand and growing field as well. And when you see someone says he's a startup or he's working as an entrepreneur, you should respect him. That's what I wanted to say. And lastly, but try to improve your perspective towards everything, because the very first answer I told you that from the plant perspective, a carnivore is a savior. So perspective may be very different from different people. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having her